Welcome, podcast listeners. There's an old saying in Tennessee. Well, I know it's in Texas. I think it's in Tennessee as well. Death, taxes, and fantasy football. All three of those things year round. Always got to be thinking about them. I mean, hopefully you're not thinking about death too much, but we did start off on a weird note on our pregame lobby. So just wanted to go with that. Fantasy does not end just because the season ends. Honestly, I can't believe we're 2 weeks past the Super Bowl and we're already in the combine season. So looking forward to breaking down some of that. And honestly, the news has been, a little stale, but still running rampant with trade rumors and teams telling them they're not coming back. And I'm just excited to see what next year holds. I'm just scouring depth charts, seeing who free agents are, seeing what holes teams are have at the moment and how they're going to fill them. I don't know. We're going to figure that out though here. So
it's rumor mill season. I kind of like this kind of year because it's kind of like a gossip part of football where it's like, none of the shit's actually happening, but it might be. Can't say for sure. Yeah, exactly. It's like it's the cousin of camp news. To where like we don't, who knows? Like I was reading on Sleeper about Mac Hollins because I was like, do I drop Mac Hollins? Do I keep him? And then I saw in his little blurb that Houston thinking about bringing him in to be one of their replacements for the receivers. And I'm interesting.
Houston's one of those teams that really has some moves that they need to make. I mean, they've won the AFC Championship or AFC North, South, whatever division they are, AFC South the last 2 years. Haven't gone anywhere in the playoffs, really stalled out. Obviously, injuries derailed this season. Like, what are they going to do for the meantime? Because Diggs is hitting free agency market, and then you don't have Dell. So we're missing 2 wide receivers, and it's almost like they got to draft him, right? Or
Mechie's contract year, which I don't think they're going to use him all that much. But I don't, it's just you're going through Sleeper right now, trying to figure out like who I need to drop so I can put the IR people back on my active roster so I can make actual moves on my team. And like you're hovering over Mac Hollins, he's 31, and you just see that little blurb, and you're like, damn it, I'm stuck with Mac Hollins for a little while longer, aren't I? Just through free agency.
I do a little thing with little highlighters and different colors.
Oh my god! Okay,
I do this every year for at least 2 leagues, and then I'm sitting here like, okay, I can't drop Will Shipley because what if something happened to Barkley? I mean, at the moment they don't have another number 2, and it's just little shit like that adds up. And you're like, okay, I have 6 defensive linemen that I'm probably never going to use. Like, it's always fun because it's like I try not to cut just all defense because you got to have some offense still, but you don't want to cut running backs. That's always tough because running backs are hard to come by. So it's a weird part of the year because like you want to be able to make moves. Like I cut a bunch of people because I made that move for Gronk. I don't believe it, but like if it does happen, it'll be really cool.
You never know.
I'm kind of in a tight end needy situation, so I'm like, well, take the risk, roll the dice. Just picked up Malcolm Kuntz. I thought that was a great pickup. Kind of ruined his year of the ACL tear in preseason, but he's going to be going somewhere. Like I have no idea where, but
I just like it's the perfect time of season where like running backs like Donta Foreman very relevant right now because it's like, do I keep him? He's only 28. Like I don't know, kind of clogging up my roster, but at the same time, like maybe he moves a team and maybe he's relevant. It's just like I don't know. This type of year sucks because you're just like I don't know who to get rid of.
Well, and you don't know who's getting cut, who's getting traded. Like they're still on contract for a year, but that's perfect prime candidate for cut and trade season. So it's like, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe they just ride out that last year. But it's kind of funny that we got to this point where it's like they don't even ride out the contracts anymore. It's like it's contract year. I have 1 year left. Pay me now, or I'm not playing, or I'm going somewhere else, basically. So you can almost book it that if there's 1 year left on a good player's contract, they're not playing or they're until they get that contract. So
yeah. Okay, well, let's talk through, before we get into Combine, that's what we're talking about today on the main show. We're talking all things Combine. We are not going to go through measurements and stuff and predictions of measurements.
I wanted to talk about some dudes' hands, though.
Well, yeah, I understand. Hand size this time of year is a big deal.
And how soft they are, like Olave's. Mine are pretty dry and crispy with this winter, so.
Very soft hands and all that good jazz. We're not going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about some storylines from the Combine that are going to make sense. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the rumor mill, the gossip talk, all the stuff going on that way. We'll just start with the trade market. Matt Stafford And the Giants, it's quite the flirtation going on right now. I don't know what to believe. What do you believe? Do you think the Giants are going to make a move? The Giants, by the way, have 0 quarterbacks under contract currently. That is a
Oh,
note that
DeVito's
came
not even
out.
there. Poor
They
guy.
have zero players under contract for quarterback on the team.
Yeah, I just to clarify this, I also saw Daniel Jones flirting around with the Pittsburgh Steelers and stuff. So it's really hard to believe everything you hear right now. But I feel like that has been one of the mainstays of Stafford to the Giants. And while I love it for the Giants, and I think that them having a quarterback to fill the gap right now, you still have a glaring issue. Like you need a quarterback of the future. You have Neighbors. You have, other good stars, right? Actually, I don't. Do they have anyone else now that we think about it? Like we want Hyatt to be
I mean,
good.
Tracy will
Wandale,
eventually. I don't know if
Tracy,
he's
yeah,
like
I
he's not
guess.
like a house. He's not like a household name right now, though. I mean, he's still
Actually,
young.
Tracy, I guess Tracy too. So Neighbors and Tracy in the draft last year, and then you got Hyatt and
He will
Wandale
not. Tracy
previous.
will not be on the front of the brochure if they were
No, but
doing
I
like a
think he
promo
should be.
package
The
right
way
now.
he played on that terrible team, he should be. But at the same time, like this Stafford trade or whatever situation signing would be great for the Giants. But at the same time, does it not just leave them in the same spot as like what the Colts were doing? And like while Stafford is a little bit above the Joe Flacco's and Phillip Rivers at the end of the career, we don't really know, man. Flacco's had some neck injuries. He's had a lot of glaring health issues for a elderly quarterback, at least for the NFL standpoint.
Elderly.
I know that felt wrong. So, but I would love it. I'd love it for them though, because they could immediately make this division the best division in football, which already is pretty damn close as it is. So, but just I'm a
I
little worried
just
because it's like, does it
the
solve anything? Because are
problem
you really going to win a Super Bowl? Like,
that's my problem with it. This offense and defense is not ready made to win right now. The defense, there's some fun pieces on there. You got Thibodeau, Brian Burns is still there. You got some good pieces in the secondary that they're building around. But as far as like actually winning games, I don't know if they're just like a Stafford away from being relevant. And I would still put them behind the Eagles and the Commanders at least. The Cowboys, I think they're probably about on the same. They would be on the same level with Stafford on that team as the Cowboys are right now.
I'd say if the Cowboys hit this offseason perfectly, they would be pretty evenly because there's a lot of holes the Cowboys got. Wide receiver
Yeah,
two,
O line
O
is not
line,
good. After that,
running
I forgot
back.
his name. One guy retired that has been there forever. From
Oh yeah,
graduated from Notre Dame. I forgot his name, but he retired, and it's like, man, that was one of their like stalwarts on that offensive line that was already rough. So now they're even more rough. It's double rough.
yeah, it's rough. As you said, woof woof about Malik Willis, rough for the Cowboys. But yeah, I just don't see the Giants like, and I could be completely wrong. Maybe that does vault them into a more competitive and get into a playoffs position. Like I don't think they're taking on the division over the Eagles or the Commanders by any means, but they could make themselves competitive at least. But it's like at what cost? Because it is them paying Stafford this ridiculous amount of money, or like when do you I don't want to say tank, but like when do you prepare for the future and hit the next draft for the quarterback or this draft for the quarterback? They're in prime position to draft Shador or Cam Ward. Do they believe in either of those two? I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem like it with the Stafford rumors swirling. But
It's an interesting time because I think, and we'll get into this a little bit more with the combine, so I don't want to step on this too much. But like you have to like really believe in one of these quarterbacks if you're going to take him, because like taking Travis Hunter, taking Abdul Carter, like those are people. Well, they wouldn't take Abdul Carter, but you know what I'm saying. Like these are pieces. O linemen. This is a huge O lineman draft. This is a draft where you can fill out the roster without like needing to sell it all for a quarterback. So if they don't really believe 100% in these guys, I could totally see them taking a guy that maybe just fits making the team better, not necessarily quarterback better.
yeah, no, I don't know. I have no idea what the Giants are going to do. They seem to keep making boneheaded moves. I saw a video of Schoen's son in the draft room with him, and it was like, "Well, who would you do?" I'd pick Jaden Daniels, which obviously they didn't have the opportunity to do, but like that kid seemed to know better of what to do, and I assume that kid also said you should keep Saquon, and Dad was like, "Nah."
Yeah, no, Schoen's kind of a fool when it comes to this so far. Again, I think we like to think that we're not very close to being NFL GMs. I don't think we're that far off from being an
Dude, the
NFL
Jaguars
GM.
guy looks like a child.
Yeah, he's like the youngest GM. I mean, he
I
looks
don't.
younger. He definitely looks younger than us. I don't know how old he is, but um, he looks about our age, which is
Yeah,
wild to think.
wild. I would love to be a GM. I'd probably look like an idiot, but I'd love to be able to do it for the time being.
For sure. Okay. Just the last one that we need to touch on is the Myles Garrett situation in Cleveland. Um, a lot of people are expecting them to trade him. I don't like, and the GM has come out and said pretty staunchly, not trading him. We are not trading him. Do you think they should? Myles Garrett has already almost said his goodbyes to Cleveland, so that's kind of funny. But what do you think is going to end up going on here?
Yeah, I don't think it's a great idea for them, but at the same time, what do they have to lose? It's the same conversation that I had about Trey Hendrickson having all the sacks that he had last year, but the defense still was terrible. So the Browns aren't going to go win a championship right now unless they hit every single free agent pick. And I'm pretty sure they're pretty strapped for cash with this whole Watson contract. So honestly, they're pretty much in cap hell for the next 2 to 3 years at this point, and getting rid of Garrett helps that, I guess, a bit. But like at the same time, are you winning a championship at the end of the day? Like, can you go and get multiple first round picks? Because that's what you need. Like, you need to be able to build and have a cheap roster 2 or 3 years from now, when you can at least try to be competitive again.
Yeah, I don't know. I know what they want. They want the King's ransom. They want the Khalil Mack trade that
Mm-hmm.
the Bears got for him. I just don't know if you have those deals sitting or not the Bears, the Raiders, right? The
The
Raiders
Raiders
got the
got it
Bears
from
to
the
trade
Bears,
him.
yeah.
I just don't think
It
any
set them back
team.
so far too for the Bears. Like, it's just any team that's making that is trying to make the run immediately, and I feel like the Bears weren't even there yet, and they still tried to make that. They still made that trade. So
I just feel like all of the smart teams won't make that trade, and all the dumb teams like can't afford to make the trade, like of
yeah,
that kind of caliber. So yeah, I don't really see how this trade's going to get done. But if Myles Garrett doesn't want to be there, we have found in the past if a player doesn't want to be somewhere, they don't end up being there for
yeah,
very
that's
much long.
fair. Yeah, and honestly, there's another rumor mill swirling with the Cincinnati Bengals T Higgins situation. I know we've touched on it a bit, but Bengals GM or coach, one of the two, said that we're going to try to get all these contracts done or whatever. And T Higgins went and just posted one blue ball cap to Twitter and X, whatever, and that doesn't look like they're going to be able to sign him.
It's just like I think everybody, including T Higgins, can kind of like do the math
Yeah,
of the situation and just find out that there's just no way because they want to sign back Hendrickson, which it's like at this point why? Like I mean,
yeah.
you,
I
you're
told
already
I told them to
sinking so much
rebuild.
money into Burrow and Chase, and then if you have to give T Higgins his crazy contract, you're gonna have to give him. I don't know how you would even afford Trey Hendrickson based on what he got.
Yeah, I feel like they really botched this, having all three of them in contract years at the same time, which is just kind of wild that it even has brought it to this point. Like, why didn't you get T done 2 years ago? Why didn't you get Trey done a year ago? Like, why haven't you gotten Chase done? Like, you're keeping Chase. Like, it's wild to me. That it's almost very Dallas Cowboys to me, where they wait to the last minute to finally get that deal done. And look what it did to them. I mean, it kind of crippled them. Parsons still doesn't have a contract. Dak signed for long term, and he's not looking like the guy. CD obviously
Yeah,
deserves
he's
his
like 50
contract.
mil.
Yeah,
He's like 50 mil, which is going to be tough to build around. And yeah, CD got his contract, which is going to look very light in the shadow of Chase. I don't
because
know.
those
The Bengals
contracts
are
keep going
not.
up and up and up, just like the rest of the world. You know what I mean?
The
Wild that you could
Bengals
have got this done.
aren't very smart. They have not exactly been a smart franchise for a long time. They just kind of have like hit on these draft picks, which is nice. But the problem with hitting on rookies and like getting to the Super Bowl is that like eventually you're gonna have to pay them.
Yep.
Like you either are smart, like and I hate to keep hyping up the Eagles, but you're smart like what the Eagles have done, where they've structured the contracts to make it to where we can still build and we can keep adding rookies in and we can cycle players out. Whereas the Bengals drafted all these guys, gave terrible contracts to players that didn't deserve them, and now they're kind of just having to eat it a little bit.
Yeah,
Like they're gonna have to
Sam Butler.
they're gonna have to release players this offseason, which is like that's not good. Like can't release the good ones, but you're gonna have to if you're gonna pay the people that you promising to
I
pay.
don't see any way Trey comes back with Higgins. I mean, it's Higgins or Trey at this point, and then you're still in cap hell. So, I mean, you really can't go out and improve your defense or offense. It's just going to be which one would you rather have? And in my opinion, I think it's Higgins because you know what he can be, and Trey Hendrickson, we know what he can be, but your defense is ass. Like, go rebuild this whole defense and
I
go try to.
see what you're saying with Higgins, but I don't think you can
But
pay
his
him
contract's going to be way
that
too much,
much.
unfortunately. Yeah,
Exactly, especially when another team is going to be willing to drop him 120 mil. Like they're
yeah,
going to do, somebody's going to do that because
it's going
there's
to be hard
teams
to
out
get him.
there that have a lot, and the Bengals can't afford to do that. They could tag him and kick the can down the road, but again, we're just
I'm saying in a
creating bigger
perfect world, I'd
problems.
rather have Higgins, but yeah, the contract wise, I mean, both of them, they can't afford either one of them. I mean, they can barely afford the Chase contract with all that's
Well,
going on.
it's gonna be Chase, Burrow, and a collection of other players, XFL team basically. After that, that's what it's gonna be here in a couple
I
of years.
think honestly though, I mean, they're still competitive with Chase and Burrow at any given moment. Like they can win a
Yeah.
game with that, which is amazing. But at
The
the same
problem is though,
time,
you as a coach, you can't miss the playoffs if you have Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow on your football team. You
not
can't.
to mention with Trey Hendrickson being the sack leader and T Higgins going for I think arguably his best season of his career. So I mean, and then coming off that and going to a contract year, it's tough, man. Like I feel for the Bengals. I feel for Bengals fans out there.
Yeah. Well, I think
Bad
it's
time
going to
for
get worse
Ohio.
before it gets better. But, and then this was like why, when they got rid of Mixon, it was like, okay, that's odd. He's not done.
He
So why
wasn't
would you
even
get rid of
paid
him?
that well either. Like it
It
wasn't like that
really
was a
wasn't. It
problem.
was just like a cut at the end of the season. He ends up being great for Houston. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let's get into the combine stuff. Let's dive into a little bit of these rookies. I have sent you the questions, so we're not surprising anybody here. But first question we have James Pierce has character concerns coming into the combine. Should we be concerned with character concerns at this point? Or is this just another attempt to get him to drop down the board and end up to potentially your Philadelphia Eagles?
I feel like there's always one every year, right? Whether it's right before draft, and there probably will be another one right before draft, or right before the combine, right during all this scouting where people are worried about the character concern. Listen, these are 21-year-old people who are about to make millions of dollars, or some who've already made millions of dollars in their NIL deals. It's just a kid, man. Remember when we were 20 years old? Like we weren't responsible. Like we were doing stupid things. I mean, it's the same thing with any of these guys. Laramie Tunsil with the video of him with a gas smoking out of a gas mask right before the draft, dropped his stock. He's been a fine tackle. Like I think these get overhyped. Obviously, there are serious situations that arise of these. I'm not really familiar with Pierce's character concern situation. Was there anything specific incident wise, or was it just bad teammate,
It's
locker room, blah blah blah?
that kind of thing, and just
Yeah.
he tweets out too much. Those kind of things. It's
Okay,
just
gotcha. Well,
I
this
don't
to
know.
me is just this at least my perspective is that this is just a young man doing young people things, man. Like we were irresponsible at 20. Hell, we might still be irresponsible at 30. But this is people who get money real quick. This is why there's car problems and different other issues whenever they do end up getting paid a bunch of money. I get it. I would have done the same shit at 20. Like if you handed me $2 million while I was in college, I 100% would have got arrested for drag racing or something stupid. Like probably worse, but keep it light here, light and airy. So I'm
Yeah,
not
it's just
overly concerned about it, but I would love to see him drop down the board just to go to a contender because maybe that's his plan. Maybe he's got an idea of like, I don't want
his
to go
plan.
to the top 15 teams that are drafting aren't very good. I don't want to be on those teams. So
It's just kind of crazy because when like after the draft last year, they put out like who's the top players that could be drafted next year and the betting odds and everything. And James Pierce was number 2 to be drafted. Like he was the second best prospect in the betting market right after last year's draft. So for him to go from that to potentially in the 19 to 30 range in the draft is just kind of nuts. And I just feel like this is another example of we're overthinking that a little bit. Just
100%.
we're gonna get a good player out of the draft because he could be a bad person off the field eventually. Like we're not even saying that it potentially is that way now. It's just could be that way at some point in time, unknown time.
I think it just comes down to everybody makes mistakes, man, especially at that age. I mean, I know we all made our fair share. And I mean, great example of this would be Jalen Carter. I mean, he obviously had his issues off the field and still was drafted at what, 8 overall or whatever
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
Eagles. So I mean, he drop down the board a bit, maybe, but I mean, he didn't slide all the way to the back end of the draft. I feel like talent over problems. I mean, obviously, certain teams might
He did
avoid
have
more
a
problems.
down season this year too. Like that was the other
Okay.
piece of the puzzle. But at the same time, I don't know. He is a little undersized. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do. But like we've also seen him, produce at Tennessee. Not last year necessarily, but the year before that for sure. And I don't know. We'll just kind of see because I don't know. This is just one of those things that I'm like, this is just another example of overthinking the hell out of a pick because what could be in the future, which I guess that's what Combine Week is about. We'll find out though, by the way, because whoever doesn't plan on drafting him is going to leak out exactly what happened in their Combine interview, whatever crazy stuff they ask and or said. We'll find out about it by the time the draft happens.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Number 2, Shedeur Sanders isn't participating at the Combine in any way, shape, or form. While this likely won't hurt his draft stock, my question to you is Shedeur Sanders worth the media circus that's going to surround Shedeur Sanders?
Oh man, I'm super curious about that as well. Obviously, what he did at Colorado was amazing with his dad as his coach. I mean, it was just kind of like a dream come true for that family, I imagine. And then, not to mention, to produce Travis Hunter as well. I mean, not that they produced him, but having those two top 5
Yeah.
picks essentially on the same team, it's such an interesting storyline to watch. But like, I have no clue because we're so light at the like immediate start quarterbacks that Cam Ward and Shedeur are like the potential 1-2 picks of the draft.
Yeah.
And I've seen them all over the place. I mean, I've seen both of them drop down to under 10 and
Shadeur's been sliding a little bit. Cam's stayed pretty steady within the first or second pick.
yeah,
But
there's just so many QB needy teams out there. It's like it's hard to see them making it past the top 5. Like
well, so
both.
let me pitch this to you because this is I've heard this discussed, this type of scenario. I'm wondering what you think about it. What if he say he gets drafted to Tennessee, number 1, and say Tennessee loses like 4 or 5 of their first couple games, maybe like say they're like 2-5 going into week 8. Don't you think we're gonna start hearing like, should we fire the coach and hire Dion? Like, don't you do you think that that's something that GMs are thinking about?
So I didn't realize how much nepotism runs rampant in this world until relatively recently. But to have some blatant case of nepotism like that happen in the NFL would just be so gross. Like, although I would love to see Dion in the NFL, and it'd be cool if he coaches his son, but like for something like that where it's like fire the coach and hire Dion, I'm actually like, while that's an interesting take, I was more interested in all the, Dion said he's not going to certain teams or whatever. I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly who those teams were, but I know he wanted to go to like the Eagles and Cowboys who currently have quarterbacks on the roster. So
I think it was also Atlanta and maybe the Raiders, which I think a lot of people have said the Raiders might be the
that one
choice.
seems to be the most fit, but they're actually pretty down the board, man. I don't know if they make it there, but like,
Yeah,
what if we have an Eli Manning situation where he just refuses to go to the team? Was it Eli that did that?
Yeah, no, yeah.
He refused to go to
Yeah,
the
he got
Chargers?
drafted he got drafted by the Chargers and immediately demanded he get traded.
Yeah, I mean, what happens then? I mean, we haven't seen that in over a decade, two decades. I mean, it's been a long time since that happened. Like, I don't know how the logistics of that works even, but like, this is the one case where I'm like, this could absolutely happen.
It's just like, what if I was running a team? Would I even want that? And it's like, as a head coach, it's not going to be you that gets the say. It's going to be the quarterback they just drafted in the top 5 of the draft. That person's going to have the power. It's not going to be the coach unless it was like, somebody established like Belichick or something. I just like, this is a very interesting situation. We haven't talked about it in a while, but it's like, it's getting to the point now where it's like, I don't know if I would take him. Like, I really don't, because I just don't want the circus around it. And I just don't want, after we lose, for the Dion chance or for Shedeur to go on like in his post game press conference, say like, man, this coach isn't getting me, isn't calling up the right play. Like, I don't want that on my team. And it's like, I don't know if other teams might be thinking that. It's interesting.
Well, I would love to see him go to the Raiders because I feel like him and his drama that he inevitably brings would make a lot of sense there. I would love to see them grab Genty and just say best talent available and go sign Sam Darnold in the meantime. Go get another wide receiver out there in the market because they have so much money. Like they don't
Yeah.
need to take this risk, but it seems really inevitable that they will for some reason. I mean, I've seen him mocked there so many times and it just seems right. And I'm pretty sure the Raiders was on Dion and Dion's list. I don't even know what Shadur feels. And like, at what point is this like his dad making his decisions for him, or just utilizing his voice? Because obviously Deion Sanders carries a big weight of around the NFL. So like, I don't know what Shadur feels, but I mean, I see him and he's Deion's kid, so I imagine he's very similar in that regard. But it's such a wild situation, and I don't know where he goes, and I don't know. I mean, he's not even going to the combine. Like when people don't go to the combine,
well, he'll be there. He's answering questions. He's just not going to participate in anything.
Okay. So when people don't go to the combine that aren't the clear-cut best player in the draft or the best player of their position group, which we don't know who is between Shadur and Cam, I always just feel like they're worried they're going to get beat. Like Genty not being there doesn't matter to me at all. Like we know he's the best, and I guess maybe Shadur, you could say, hey, he's one or two, doesn't really matter. There's only two people in the draft anyway, but it always seems to me that he's worried that Cam Ward's going to beat him out in the combine or whatever, look better than he does at the end of the day. And that's what I'm always curious about when it's not injury related and it's not like clear cut favorite. Because honestly, he could go out there and perform better than Cam Ward and jump up the board, but maybe he doesn't want that either.
He could have, the conspiracy theory behind that could be that, like, yeah, maybe he doesn't want to go out there and show what he's got because, like, either A, he just is like, I want to go to a specific team, so I'll do it at my pro day and I'll do my private workouts for whatever specific team wants it, or whichever ones he's willing to go to.
Is he just not going to take some if like the Giants call him and they'll be like, nah, I don't want to go there?
It's definitely interesting, and it's definitely going to keep ramping up the closer and closer we get to the draft. This draft is going to be wild at the first couple picks. We don't know what in the hell is going to happen. Literally, there's 4 players that could be number 1 right now. We don't know. Yeah. And then, because usually we have like a clear cut, like, well, maybe this guy, or it's clear cut, like Caleb's going number 1, draft starts at 2. This one, I have no clue what could happen between now and April. Like, there's so much that could happen.
The good news is we will get some clarity, and it'll be very clear that the Raiders aren't going after a quarterback once they go sign Sam Darnold or Justin Fields.
That's true. Free agency will definitely answer some questions. Free agency
will clear up because, like, all 4, I mean, if you count the Browns, all top 4 picks need quarterbacks, like, immediately.
Yeah.
So, wait, who's the 4th in the draft? I don't even remember at this point.
It's not New England, right?
New England. Okay, maybe New England doesn't. So 4 of the top 5 need quarterbacks. So it's just one of those situations where it's like, we'll know if the Titans go out and get someone in free agency, it'll be very clear. If the Giants do, I feel like the Titans hold all the stock right now too. And it's like, if they could trade that, are they gonna try to trade that pick on draft night? I mean, there's gonna be some fun trades going on this draft, I have a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders are at 6. We know Jacksonville and the Patriots aren't taking a quarterback, so it's either.
That's right. Sorry.
Yeah. So.
Not that I still trade every single day of my life. I still can't.
New York Jets also need a quarterback, by the way, so that could be interesting. But free agency is going to clear up this conversation a little bit, so we will definitely have these answers. But I just pinning the Shadur conversation. I don't know if I could do it. Without knowing for sure that I have like Deion's blessing and I have, his pastor's blessing and like all these different people's blessing for him to be on the team. He's got, everybody's marching in the same direction. I just don't know if I would take him. I don't know.
From a fantasy perspective, though, like I know that we're talking combine, but from a fantasy perspective, not regardless of landing spot, what do you project for Shadur? I'm feeling like he's very Kyler Murray-esque. Like there's going to be some off the field or on the field issues, camp, whatever, training, reading playbooks and stuff like that. I feel like there's going to be some weird stuff like that, like where they butt heads with coaches, depending on if it's Deion or not. And then, but also still kind of perform when he's playing. Because like Kyler, while he had all those issues, was still playing pretty well. I mean, decent.
Yeah. Other than I think it could either go one of 2 directions. Either one, him getting away from his dad and being, put into this thing by
actually going and
himself
learning and taking.
actually would change the whole perception of him, that he would actually be a completely different person than what he's perceived as now with Dion's backing. Like maybe Dion will chirp in the media, maybe Shedeur is completely quiet the whole time. That would be interesting. That could happen. Or, it's a complete mess and we have chaos happening each and every week, which would be fun for us to talk about, but it definitely would hurt the overall morale, I'm sure, of a team. But I mean, his measurables are going to be interesting. I know we're not going to talk about measurables, but like they said, he was 6'2" at Colorado. It's already come down to he's 6'1". It's interesting if he's even shorter than that potentially. Like we'll see at the official measurements as far as that goes. And I don't even care about weight anymore. Like Jaden Daniels has completely thrown the weight conversation out of the window. I don't really care about weight anymore. Just
I
don't.
really hope to God Jaden Daniels stays healthy, man. He looks so tired. Having him on one of my teams, man, I was just sitting here like every time he ran the ball, which he did very freaking well, I was just terrified. Like, especially with the
Yeah.
RG3 situation that happened in Washington. And I mean, goddamn, Alex Smith. I mean, they've had really bad quarterback injuries on that team. Uh, Going back further back, obviously, we know those. But man, I just hope he stays healthy. Sorry, just want to take that side note. Love
No,
seeing him.
it's true. I mean, he did actually get the rib injury that we were afraid of. It just wasn't season ending like we feared. But,
I'm more worried about the legs.
more worried about the legs for sure. But the thin frame is also nerve wracking because he's
Yeah,
getting
that's
hit
fair.
by 300 pounders. I mean, I'm sure none of us want to get hit by a 300-pound guy trying to,
Not really. Not really.
kill me. Yeah, so I don't know. The Shedeur thing is going to be interesting. We'll see what the measurables are. That's going to be one to follow up on as we go on here. Okay, next question. Jackson Dart is training to run a 4.5 to 4.6, which is really fast for a quarterback. If he accomplished this, would that potentially make him a first round quarterback back end?
I'm curious because there's a lot of QB needy teams. Dart and Jalen Milrow. I mean, I know that he's probably more of a project than anything, but Dart has shown that he can be that elite quarterback. I mean, at a pretty high level in college. I mean, Ole Miss is they play some pretty good teams, obviously, um,
Yeah.
and he's thrown for 300, 400, 500 yards. Like, I mean, he can do it. So I guess really the speed does come down to everything at this point, man. Like everyone's rushing ability really matters now in quarterbacks that aren't Joe Burrow and the classic pocket quarterbacks. So I mean, yeah, everyone's looking for this type of player. I mean, I could see Dart or Milrow screaming up those boards and being he could make it after. I mean, one good performance at the combine for either one of these guys or both of these guys could put them in the conversation for draft day. I mean, and not to mention most of the back half of the draft, Bills, Chiefs, Eagles, like sure they have holes to fill, but they could wait 5 picks and let one of those second rounder guys, like early second round, people
Mm-hmm.
trade up for it. So that's what I'm most curious about is running backs and quarterbacks at the end of the first round. I know that we're pretty much sold that one running back's going to go, of course, but there's always just that little like in the back of my mind, like, are you trying to jump ahead of all the other teams that are going to do it in the second
Yeah.
round? And it's really Marion Hampton is the number 2 at this point.
I definitely think Hampton's going to be in the first. It's interesting if we're going to get a third. I've seen
Yeah.
Henderson's name batted around. I don't really know if he's necessarily a good first round pick, but at the same time, like he's Travis Etienne version. Like he's similar-ish players. I'm not saying they're the same, but I could see them being that kind of player. Um, but as far as Jackson Dart goes, I think if he runs a 4.5, you're going to have a hard time talking people out of him being in the first round of the NFL draft. I think if he runs a 4.5 this weekend, our mock draft is going to probably have Jackson Dart in the first round when we do the second one next week.
Yeah, watching him progress each year was just amazing, like in every statistical category. Like, I mean, it's hard to say, oh, wow, like, someone had one good year at the end of their college career or whatever, but he clearly has been getting better. I don't know how that translates as an immediate fix-in, like for immediate fill-in, but maybe there is a team like the Vikings who aren't sure of McCarthy. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch. They just drafted him, but I'm just thinking of
Yeah.
a team that is losing a quarterback or is kind of unsure of their quarterback. Maybe the Seahawks, You know what I mean? Maybe get someone behind Geno. You know what I mean? There's plenty of teams
It
that
could even
are
be like the Rams potentially if they keep
Rams,
Stafford for whatever reason and they just draft like a dart to be
or
behind
if the
him.
Rams just wanted to sign him to be their quarterback of the future and fill in
That's
with
true
what they
too.
can find in free agency. Like, I mean, maybe, I could see the Rams being one of the guys who go after, Russell Wilson or, 1 year contract kind of guys, not the top three, which, man, the free agency quarterback market is not great. You got Sam
No.
Darnold,
I've
Fields.
heard that Fields is going to be asking for $15 million a year. And I'm like, who the hell is going to pay Justin Fields $15 million for 1 year?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I think that's a steal for what quarterbacks make.
What? For what? Like, what did he do to get $15 million for 1
100%.
year?
I completely agree with you. 100% agree with you. What quarterbacks make now at 50 mil, 40 mil as like the jumping off point to take 15 mil for a contract, it's like a very expensive backup. This would be a Fields Dart combo would be I'd be happy to start my, new team, new progression with that. Like, you're drafting someone too if you're doing that. Like, you're either going after Sam Darnold and you want to
Yeah.
win now, or Aaron Rodgers or whoever's out there, trade for Mathew Stafford, whatever you need to do. But like, personally, like, Fields has gotta be paired with something else, right? You're not like, I'm rolling him out there, we're good. But at the same time, you put Dart or Milrow in there. Maybe Milrow could learn from Fields. I mean, and also, I honestly, like, I still kind of believe in Fields. I don't believe he's going to be the best quarterback in the world, but I think he can win games. I think he showed that in Pittsburgh. And
Yeah.
while, yes, he was a game manager, he did it well. I mean, he did it better than other quarterbacks did that have
If
started
Green Bay can figure out Malik Willis, somebody can figure out Justin Fields. That's
100%.
kind of what I feel about that because Justin Fields is better than Malik Willis, and Malik Willis looked really good for the Packers in his backup duties.
Yeah, and while that 15 mil is jarring to hear, and it's like, wow, does he deserve that? It's like, if you start looking at other contracts, you're like, all right, well, that's really not that much. I mean, backup quarterbacks are
I
making,
just, I guess, I don't know. I just like, I'm like, why? Why would, like, because he wasn't paid that much to be with the Steelers, which, given
also,
that was a weird contract situation, but
not that anyone's
I don't
done
know.
this really, other than the first year of Lamar and then Taysom Hill. But like, what if they used him as a gadget player? What if they did end up? I mean, the Steelers kind of did it a little bit
Sure.
last year, but not enough. I kept saying, why are they not putting Justin Fields in that playoff game? Especially, it's like, at what point do you think that you actually have a chance to win with Russell Wilson in after watching him play
Yeah.
and fall off a cliff at the end of the year?
I'm nervous about Russell Wilson because he is going to totally bomb some team next year, and we're just going to have to
I
suffer the
really hope it's.
consequences.
I was gonna say, I really hope it's not a team that I have any players on, but I'm pretty
Me
sure I have
too.
players on every team.
Well,
So
the Steelers seem like they might be going to Aaron Rodgers, which is just like, why, guys? Come on, man. Like, you don't have to
it's a
do this.
legacy thing. Okay, once again, Jackson Dart behind Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? Like, as long as you got something to go in front of them, you know what I mean? Like,
That's
that's what
true.
I think. As long as you're not throwing Jackson Dart out there to the wind, I'd love for this guy to succeed. I mean, he
By
looks
the
like
way,
a
Jackson
player.
Dart, fantastic name for a quarterback.
It's a great name.
I mean,
I hate the name
Spencer Rattler was
Jackson.
pretty good, but Dart for a quarterback, like throwing a dart, it's just like you couldn't even make that up if you wanted to. Like,
As long as he's not throwing too sharp of darts like Caleb Williams last year. He needs to throw
yeah,
a little
that's
bit of
true.
loft into the ball every once in a while.
A little bit of mustard on that one. Okay, let's move on to the next question, and it is the Travis Hunter question. He is testing with the defensive backs this week at the combine. How should we view him in fantasy drafts?
Man, that is the $1 million question for fantasy drafts right now. I've seen mock drafts putting him at like 6, 7, 8 because they don't want to leave him out, right? Like, they don't want to be like, oh, he's a corner, like nobody wants him. At the same time, for Dynasty or for IDP, like, super fun. Like, because if you can get a safety wide receiver combo, like your corner, say, whatever, defensive back wide receiver combo,
Mm-hmm.
how amazing would that be? Put him slot. And I don't know what Sleeper and these apps are going to do with this kind of dual threat. Like, are they going to make him a wide receiver and you can't use him in corner because it's almost a cheat code? I mean, it's the Taysom Hill quarterback tight end situation. So I don't know what to make of this. I have no idea. I mean, obviously he's going to go out there and be a corner, but like, what fetches him the most money is the question, and what is the longest career? Because I feel like corners kind of age out at 30, and wide receivers can play till 40 potentially if they're great. So like, I
Yeah.
feel like you have a better shot at longevity if you are a wide receiver, just in my opinion. I mean, you don't see many 40-year-old corners out there. Most people at 32 are pretty much aging out. Slay's 33, and they're already talking about retirement or, moving on from the team. So just I don't know where that sits. I mean, what's your thoughts on this?
So I want to see if he works out on Saturday because Friday is when the DBs work out. Saturday is when the wide receivers work out. He has not committed to doing the wide receiver drills yet. He has his own podcast or something called the Travis Hunter Show, and he still has not said whether he's going to do. He plans on playing both in the NFL, and each team he talks to, he's going to tell them that. But I think it would go a long way if we saw him compete with the wide receivers. At least do some of the drills for the wide receivers and do the defensive back stuff. But we know he's for sure doing defensive back stuff. I am going to be scared as hell going into his fantasy draft drafting Travis Hunter. Like you're either getting like the greatest, like you could put him in your DB spot, but you're also getting a wide receiver, or he's going to completely just play DB most of the time, and they'll have him in there for 4 or 5 snaps a game that could lead to almost nothing. Like it's going to be if you don't play IDP, I really don't know what the hell you're going to do. Like I really have no clue. Like this is why you should play IDP right here. Like where this Travis Hunter situation is exactly why. But if he just mostly DB with a little bit of wide receiver, I don't know if he's draftable in regular drafts. People are going to do it, assuming that they're going to do the right thing and use him that way. But you're going to have to get a creative coach. Like you're going to have a coach that's on board to do some funky stuff like that. And not every coach is going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, he cannot play both sides of the ball every snap, right? And if
Not
you're
full, not
if
full.
you say you're a corner, I imagine you're not just going to pop out of the draft or you pop out of the game and be like, I'm saving myself.
Right, exactly.
Right? So it's like wide receiver, you're getting a few plays a game, which, yeah, one of them could be a 60, 80-yard touchdown, which would be great.
Yeah.
And would look great, but could also look really silly because corners don't really get that many points in fantasy most of the time. Maybe a pick here and there, but without that pick, you got 3 to 5 tackles. You're sitting at a 7-8 point game, and then you're hoping for a catch at that point. So it's like,
well, plus he's a lockdown corner too. He's not like one of the guys that's going to get thrown on a lot. So it's going to be like a Darius Slay situation where it's like Slay, unless he gets an interception, sometimes he's getting 3 or 4 tackles a game because they're not throwing it to him. That's kind of what Travis Hunter, what he's at least known to be. So I don't know, man. Are you you're kind of drafting in about the Travis Hunter range in drafts? Like, are you thinking about it?
Yeah, so I think I got 6th, 7th, and 4th in dynasty drafts. Actually, I don't think we've technically
4th
done
you
that.
Probably don't have to, but like the 6th, 7th, 8th, like that, those picks are probably right around the range.
I'm hoping someone grabs them before me, so something else falls.
So you don't have to make the choice.
There's like 5, 6 running backs, right? And then there's Ted, and then there's Egbuka, who kind of falls in my range. And Burden, yeah. So those two, like, I need a running back in the league that we're drafting in 5, 6, and I'm hoping the good one falls there. But Tech goes before then, so we got 5. I'm at the.
Well, what if Hunter gets drafted 4th or 5th in the NFL draft?
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm hoping someone bites on him, thinking,
okay, I see what you're saying.
No, I don't want that smoke. I don't want it. Like, I don't even want it. I need this pick to hit because I'm a piece away from being a competitive team. Like, I don't want that situation. So, as I finish 7th place in this league every year, I want to make the playoffs this year. So I love it. And it's a super bold strategy. If your team's already good, or not to mention if he falls,
that's what's going to suck. By the way.
Yeah. If he falls to the 8, 9, 10 pick and you made the playoffs and you're already a competitor, like you're already that team, hell yeah, take him at 9 or 10. Like I'm all about it. If the championship team gets Travis Hunter, I think that's scary for everyone. But for the IDP aspect of it, it's amazing. And it's like, what if? Like, because I could slot him into that DB spot, get my wide receiver points as well. But like, no one knows what that looks like because it's only been done so many times. And I mean, I guess in recent examples, at least Cooper DeJean goes, I mean, not playing offense, but going out there and doing kick returns. I mean, you've seen it with a couple other players who go out there and will do, special teams plays because they're that kind of elite level of talent. Well, Travis Hunter is that elite level talent to be a wide receiver. So he's warranted at least, like you said, 4 or 5 snaps, but maybe it's more than that. Like he's young, and he's been doing it at college. Like it's obviously terrifying for like injury aspects and, burnout and being tired and everything, but I have no clue, man. Like who knows? Maybe I'll end up drafting him.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is one of the wackier drafts. Just like it's just there's so many question marks of like I don't know. It's and unless you're in the organization that drafts him, like you don't know what they're planning to do with him. Because like I've seen that Jacksonville has been linked to him quite a bit. Does Jacksonville need that? Like I don't know if they
Right?
need him to play a bunch, but
Do
at
they
the
go
same
to a
time,
team
like
where the wide receiver spot is even available? You know what I mean? What if he, like,
right.
hypothetically, what if he went to the Eagles and he was the third wide receiver? Are we really getting that throw? Man, we can't get. I'm obviously this is a terrible
He
example.
would be perfect for the Eagles, by the way, because they only need a guy to catch like 3 or 4 balls a game, like
Yeah,
outside of Devonta and AJ. So that would be perfect for them, but he's not going to make it that far.
obviously not. I'm trying to utilize maybe what if it was Cincinnati, like, and T Higgins gets re-signed, and like once again, terrible examples because probably not going to make it that far. But it's like, what if like he's just not needed? Jacksonville's a perfect example. Like, what if they do bring Kirk back? What if they have Brian Thomas, Evan Ingram, Kirk, and extras out there, and then Travis Hunter's just not needed, and he gets one play a game? It's like, is that one play warranted to get your home run boomer bust play? Like, I hate it, but I love it at the same time. Like, there's like what two
Well,
guys in this draft for fantasy that were like, oh yeah, 100%, you're locking them in. That's Amarion and Genty, and then maybe you can
mhm.
add Tet to that conversation depending on landing spot. But
Landing spots are going to mean a lot, especially like Carolina. Like everybody, all eyes are on them to see what they do with their spot, or potentially the Patriots. But the Patriots are kind of the like if they get Travis Hunter, what are they going to do? Because they have an elite defensive back and Christian Gonzalez, cornerback. So they don't necessarily need him to be the defensive back that he's, I don't know. This is just a very weird draft. Like if they get drafted by the Patriots, I think he should move up. Like I think
you're
they'll
number
probably
two.
use him more as a wide receiver than they would use him as a defensive back because they don't
But the
necessarily need
problem
him that
is,
way.
this
But
is number two in IDP leagues again because we're like, if
right,
you're not in an IDP league, then you are not drafting this guy.
you're taking a super gamble because even putting him in your flex spot, like what again? What if he gets 4 or 5 snaps? That's not going to work for an entire season. Yeah,
That's the most interesting piece of this draft is what position will he play, and I think he knows that. I mean, he's having fun with this. Like he might know that he's going to end up being a mostly wide receiver as well. Like we have no idea.
for sure. Okay, a couple questions left. Let's burn through them. The next one is: will anyone break the 40-yard dash record? It was just broken last year by Xavier Worthy. You, I know you've not like me neither. By the way, have grinded tape to see if somebody's faster. But I mean, Travis Hunter is reportedly faster. Like they've clocked him. He's never run. I don't think he's run a 40 to like prove it, but just in game, he's been faster. Tez Johnson and I think Arian Smith, but I don't really know
I was
much about
actually
them.
gonna say Tez too, and I was like, I wasn't sure where he falls in a 40 aspect, but honestly, man, these kids are getting faster and faster. It's possible. I feel like the 40 is such a weird thing because it's like so questionable of when they start the clock, in my opinion. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a stopwatch, right? Like, I mean, sure, you can say it one way or another, but like, are we looking back on this? Are they running the tape on it on like exactly when he crosses the lines on each side, when he gets his jump off? But it's possible. I mean, I don't have any hate either way. If it does happen, I think it's fun just to see the next fastest guy come into the league and get compared to Tyreek Hill.
For sure. I did want to bring up an interesting note about Tez Johnson. This kind of just gave me a good way to talk about him. Did you know, and this is an interesting draft fact, he is an adopted brother of Bo Nix?
I did not.
Tez Johnson was adopted by Bo Nix's family when he was 15. So this begs the question, Josh. Does the Denver Broncos draft Tez Johnson?
Seems very likely now. Like I feel like we can go ahead and book it. I mean, Sutton's got what 1 year left. We got Mims who started making some noise. Troy Franklin really never lived up to be like that guy. They're not really probably targeting wide receiver super early, but I don't think Tez is really like above the third round.
Well, he's five. Okay, so this is one of the measurables I do want to know from the combine is Tez Johnson because I think the Senior Bowl had him at like 5'10", 165 pounds, which I, I'm pretty sure we could pick that guy up and throw him if we needed to. Like that's how light that
Danny's
is.
got it.
Yeah,
Oh, wait,
exactly.
sorry, Danny's not 5'10".
I was about to say a little, slightly taller Danny. Yeah. Um, I just don't. Is that going to make sense for somebody to draft him? But then again, Broncos might be going for him kind of later, a little bit later.
Yeah, I just feel like Broncos already have that in Marvin Mims. I mean, I don't know how much they believe in him, but that's pretty much the same
I don't know.
measurables at that point. I don't think I think height has been and weight and size in general, except for quarterback, really has been kind of off the board lately because we've seen what Tyreek Hill can do. We've seen Devontae Smith. We've seen some of these littler guys. I mean, Kyler Murray. I mean, he's not a bad quarterback. Everybody says he can't see over the line. I don't know if that's true, but he's seemingly making splash plays here and there. So I don't think height and weight necessarily matter as much as it used to. Like I think it used to be you're 6'2", we'll sign you. If you're not, we're not. You're going to drop down the board. So especially for wide receiver, because those roles can still be the home run guy, can still be a slot guy, can still do some end
Well,
arounds.
look, I mean, we look no further than Tank Dell. I mean, we had super concerns about him coming in because we were like, okay, he's like 5'8", 100 and about the same thing, 160 pounds or so. What could he possibly do in the NFL? But he just had such a lethal route running that he's done everything we've needed him to do. We'll just
Yeah.
hope that one of the Denver Broncos players doesn't go flying into his leg, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not judging on size anymore. I'm kind of over that. I feel like we've seen greats in all sports that aren't that don't measure up to the measurables or whatever, and then they prove the doubters wrong every time. So maybe not every time, certain times.
Yep. Josh Hall and the women in our lives, not judging by size anymore. It's
Nope, definitely
one of
not.
those handshake moments. We're happy they're
Mhm.
happening. I would love for Travis Hunter to break this record, by the way. That would be fascinating if
I
we can
think.
also add that he's a speed demon to everything else that we were talking about with him.
Oh yeah, no, it would be super cool. And honestly, the worthy conversation. I didn't see it. Like I still don't see the speed that everyone is talking about. Like he's made great
I
plays, but
agree.
it's always like an end around, and it's like anyone. I'm not saying anyone. A lot of players can go on an end around and hit the right holes, right? Like it's not about
Yeah.
speed on that. It's more about agility and figuring out where to go at the right time. I never saw the breakaway like 100-yard touchdown from him. I know we're comparing this to Tyreek Hill naturally, but like we never saw the breakaway like speed from him that he showed in the combine. So personally, I don't know, seeing Travis Hunter with that speed would be a lot cooler, but good for Worthy. Obviously amazing that he can do that. And then his trash time in the fourth quarter and
I
the
was
Super
about to
Bowl.
say, like, what he did at the Super Bowl in trash time was cool to watch. Like, I would love to know if we're
Curls and slants
playing
though.
as hard as possible. Again, if we're going one for one, like, is that, would that have worked? But it didn't. So we don't know. I don't know. I would love for them to be a more down the field team. I know that they're much more into the analytics of like if we can get 7 yards on each play and chew up a bunch of clock, then that gives the opponent less time to win. Sure, if the Chiefs want to play that way again, that's fine. But I would love for them to go back to the days where they at least tried
Dude,
the
the fall off
long
of
balls.
Marquise Brown is just wild to me. Like he was
I
good
mean,
last
he
year.
was hurt. Like, I don't know. He broke his back. What do you want him to do?
Yeah, that is true. I guess that's fair. I'm sorry, being a little aggressive on him.
No, I get it. I mean, they may resign him. I think giving him another chance would be interesting. I don't think they bring back D Hop.
No, Hopkins
I
is.
don't know what the hell happened to D Hop. He looked pretty good in Tennessee, I thought. Like, maybe
Yeah,
not as
he had
well as
the
he once
three.
was, but
He had the 3 touchdown game with Will Levis, and like everything looked great, like for a little while, and then yeah, I don't know. You
he
think
gets the
Mahomes?
Chiefs. He looks ancient. Like, he
Well,
looked, he
I don't
looked
know.
a
I don't
million
know if
years
they were
old.
using him right either. There was because Mahomes doesn't really hit quick slants or quick. Oh, he does hit quick slants. Sorry, he doesn't hit quick outs, which is what Hopkins'
Yeah,
specialty is an
that's
out
true.
route towards the sideline, jump ball. I never saw Hopkins jump one time this year. I'm sure it happened, but I feel like it never happened.
It's
So
a good
I
point.
it
But
feels
thank you, Chiefs, for making one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Well, it has been like look like a joke. Like, thank you guys for doing
yeah,
that. We
could have been a
appreciate that.
great, red zone guy. Like I feel like they just didn't use it was all quick slants for him, and I'm like, that's not Hopkins' game. Like, get him to jump over a defender. Like that's what I want to see from DeAndre Hopkins when he's playing.
I don't know.
Also, I hate the
I
one
always
jet.
yeah.
Hate it. I understand it. It's probably for hair pulling in situations, but
Right. I don't know. I hated this season that everybody was like, the Chiefs have a joke of a wide receiver core. And I'm like, do they though?
I
Like, I
think there
know
are
they're a little
some others who
older,
didn't use it right.
but yeah, I was
Also
like,
got
are
screwed
they?
with Rice and Marquise Brown being out for like the entire year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, man, with Rice back, that'll be an interesting team. All right, let's go on. 2 more questions. What do we think Ashton Genty, who's not participating, by the way, so this is kind of a moot point, but what do we think he can do at the combine, maybe just talking, to go in the top 10 of the NFL draft? I'm wondering what could get him in the top 10.
I don't think he has to do a goddamn thing, man. I think all it takes is the Raiders, who were swinging for I don't know who the best running back is on the free agency board, but really want to say the
Probably
Raiders.
Aaron Jones, which I
I was
don't
gonna
love
say.
that. Oh, maybe Najee. I guess you go Najee. He's
I was
younger.
gonna say. I was just gonna say. Let's say Raiders swing for Najee, they miss, and Najee goes somewhere else, and that was their one true guy. I mean, that's probably the closest thing you're getting to a Genty in free agency, and you know it ain't it. But at the same time, I can't wait to see the change of scenery for Najee. I've been trying to trade for him everywhere. Joe will not give him to me. It's a dick. But I think what it takes is just one of those teams who needs running backs. Who there's a lot of them, man, up in the top of the board, and one team to whiff, and all of a sudden here he is. Or, maybe the Cowboys or another team that really wants Genty starts hearing rumors of i.e. the Raiders drafting him. Or like, let's say 2 quarterbacks go off 1-2. Raiders are like, oh, yeah, we know what we're getting, and then all of a sudden there's a trade up for him. I don't think he makes it outside the top 10. I mean, obviously there's the fact that he goes to the Cowboys 12, which makes sense, but I could see him going higher.
Do you want to hear the list of teams that have a formal meeting scheduled with Ashton Genty this week?
I'd love to hear it. Let's do it.
Okay. Number 1 is the Giants. We'll just go with how likely we think that he would go to the team. The Giants. I feel like unlikely to me.
What are we? I was gonna say, what's our rating scale here? Out of 5?
We'll go 1 to 5. Yeah.
I'll go 2 with the Giants.
I would go 2 as well. That would be shocking. But if they traded down, we can start talking our way into that. All right, number 2. I
could see them going best available and then just doing what we hate to see, like what happened with Charbonnet and Walker, like just being like, well, we got.
That's true. I would absolutely hate that, and I would be kind of pumping my fist under the table a little bit that I didn't have the number 1 pick overall.
They're already linked to the signing of or trading of Stafford, which I don't know what that trade fetches, by the way. We didn't get into that. Like, what do you even trade for Stafford at this point? It's not
I'm thinking they're going to want first, but the Giants are definitely not giving 4, so no. I don't know what they would get for him.
No clue.
Because the values are way off there. But maybe they trade like a couple seconds or something. I don't know. Anyway, second team is the Broncos.
I mean,
Broncos are drafting at 20.
I don't think it makes it. I don't think it makes it, but there's a chance. But I don't think it makes it.
I think this is a 2 for me. I do think they need a running back. I just think they're probably in one of the other guys' camp. I think they're just maybe.
I'm going to put them at 3 because I could see the Broncos getting aggressive, and that's really the one piece. Like if they had you added a Saquon Barkley to that team, and I think they're there. Their defense is stellar. They have good enough wide receivers. Bo Nix has shown that he can be great. There's rumors of Gronkowski. I know that that's stupid and Sean Payton. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's their number 1 draft goal in my opinion. I've been assuming Hampton goes to them, but
I do think they need a running back. I think maybe they're just it's one of those things where like we have to have the meeting because we need a running back, and if we didn't have a meeting with the best one, like how dumb do we look?
Yeah, it's fair. They're probably meeting with several running backs.
Yeah. And then who knows? Maybe they fall in love and they get aggressive. All right, we have like 8 teams on this list, so I need to get through them. Next one is the Vikings. Vikings draft at
18, 17, something like that.
24.
24. Oh, they did make the playoffs, didn't they? They just failed.
Ain't no way in hell they're getting him at 24.
No, they got too much. They can't be trading. They need a quarterback and a running back. It's too much.
Yeah, so, they do need a running back, but I think it's a similar thing with the Broncos. All right, next is the Steelers. They drafted 21.
Let's get quarterback, running back. I'd probably say 2, just because I could see them wanting the running back in the future as they let both of their running backs walk.
This one concerns me. The next one's the Colts.
What's your plan here, buddies? Like
exactly. Because they draft. Okay, so just for the sake of it, they draft at 14. I think this is a 1 for me. If he could go at 14.
I mean, yeah, no. If he makes it past the Cowboys and like they're just like fuck it, let's ball. Like let's have 3 running backs on our team. I'm counting Richardson.
Dude, what if? All right, hear me out. Now we got the wheels a turning here. What if? Because there's a lot of trades that get done this week at the combine. It's crazy. You get these guys in a room, they get a couple brews going, and suddenly Russell Wilson's on the Broncos. By the way, it's a completely true story. He was traded at the combine during a meeting, during a
You
dinner
can't
at the
trade right
combine.
now.
No. But you can talk about it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You can't actually do the trade, but you can hash out the details about it, and that's how the Russell Wilson trade happened. Happened at a dinner in Indianapolis during the combine. So what if we just, for the sake of it, say that they trade Jonathan Taylor this week? Potentially whoever. I don't know. Somebody. Yeah. They could take Genty at 14.
To the Cowboys for 12 too. I mean,
yeah.
Have 12 and 14. I mean, that solves the Cowboys problem. That solves the It could happen, man.
Because why request the meeting? Now again, there's a lot of these teams that they're not going to get him. So why, like you're just doing your due diligence, and maybe the Colts are doing that too. But the Colts are the first team that we've talked about so far that I'm like, y'all have a running back though. So, but the Giants do. But
that team needs so much to be relevant. Like, and a quarterback is one of them. And I think they're starting to realize that. So, Taylor for the 12, and then draft Genty there, and then grab whatever they need there, offensive line, defense, whatever it needs to
14?
be. Yeah,
I don't know. It's interesting.
Could be Warren.
Something to think about.
It could be tight end season too, right there.
Well, everybody's been mocking them to have a tight end, but imagine walking away with Genty and Warren.
It would be amazing.
Wow.
Two of the best talents in the draft.
We're just a couple of guys thinking here, just talking out loud through this. All right, next one is who you think. I think is the Bears.
I really do. I feel like the Bears need so much and at the same time need so little. And you get Genty, and yes, an offensive line will help, but you can go out there and get some in free agency. You can still draft one in the second round. They have 2 picks in the second round. You're not going to draft O-line, defensive line. You know what I mean? Like, that's not their first 3 picks. So, like, true. If you can go get the best talent arguably other than Travis Hunter, in the draft there, which makes sense, and I don't know. The only other thing I could see is the Bears trading back at that spot, and
possible, yeah.
Yeah, and like collecting a first and a second, or a first and a third, and some future picks.
I just feel like they need a O-lineman.
I like Swift personally, and I know Ben Johnson does too. I mean, he obviously wasn't the one who made the trade to get rid of him. He worked with him before. I think he's pretty excited to actually work with Swift. So while they probably need a second running back, they could attack that later. But
True.
The best. I'm putting 4.
We'll see.
3.
I think this is the most likely one so far. Bears at 4. All right, 3 more. Next one, obvious team here, the Chargers. They draft at 22. I don't think they're high enough, but they definitely could use them.
They could be. And honestly, you know what? This Bears spot is where Genty gets picked. I want to go ahead and bet on that. Like, I want to bet that Genty gets picked at what, 8? Is that what the Bears are at?
It's 10.
10. Yeah, I want to bet that he's picked at 10, because whether they pick him or not, they're trading back to a team like the Chargers or one of these other teams. That pick is available. Let me tell you, because that team needs a lot of pieces and quickly.
For sure. All right, next one is the Ravens to get Derrick Henry out, but they don't pick until 27, so that would be quite the.
That's a 0.
I feel like that's more of just a due diligence situation.
They're probably just like, we have Derrick Henry. Just wanted to tell you what we have.
The last one is the Saints at 9.
Holy shit! Never even crossed my mind, dude.
Yeah, that's the last team that's requested an interview, and I feel like they need to be in next year's running back market, not this year's running back market. I mean, roll with Kamara, because they're not winning it right now. That's the thing.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so first things first, they're not winning, and Carr's out, I think, which is his contract is so terrible. Yeah. They could get rid of him, but they'd burn so much money. Kamara's got 1 more year after. He's got 2 more years, but they could get rid of him if need be. Actually, they can't. They'd have to eat so much money. They have Kamara for 2 more years. It's gross, but man, it's the future.
I just think this is too deep of a class. I just think if they wanted a running back, they could get one in the second round, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Or they could wait until next year.
You seen the meme of the girl that's like, and then she goes, but
Yeah,
wait,
yeah,
that's what this is. It's we could get the Marion Hampton, blah blah blah, whatever. Who else in the second or third round?
yeah.
We could have Genty,
That's
and
true.
I think that every team is
It's gonna be
thinking,
hard sitting there with Ginty on the board, and you don't need a running back, but just like you could use one, and all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe, and yeah,
the
you could
Giants.
end up
I
with
feel like
one.
the Giants make the least amount of sense, but if they're going to be attacking quarterback in free
Well,
agency,
technically the Colts do, but now I've got a tinfoil hat on about it, and I'm like, well, what are you all doing? What are you all thinking?
I
What's
mean,
going
this
on up there?
This just got me. I'm really glad that we did this podcast. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wasn't sure what this was gonna look like because I'm kind of novice when it comes to college players. This is like my first real dig deep of research. And man, you just opened up this chasm of like what is gonna happen in the next month and a half, and I'm just
I
super
know.
stoked.
I know it's gonna get crazy, but I don't know. And then, of course, those are just the people that have actually asked for an interview. Like the Cowboys weren't on that list. We know the Cowboys are at least thinking about it. I would say the Raiders, who you mentioned, they could be thinking about it.
You know who I really want to see and don't want to see? I guess I hate watching the Cowboys draft good players. It happens way too often, unfortunately. Jerry Jones or whoever he's the GM, right? Owner slash GM.
Unfortunately, yeah,
So he surprisingly makes some really good draft picks. I don't know who's around him to tell him who to draft, but CD, Micah Parsons, Zeke. I wanted all those people on the Eagles when before. I mean, I don't think we had
yeah,
James
that's true.
Parsons, to be fair, but like he does draft really well. He's just so dumb at the rest of this. But you know who I'd love to see on that team? Tet McMillan. Like
Yeah,
I'd
that'd be
love it and hate
interesting.
it. Like that would be great. Get him an actual 1A, 1B instead of throwing around these Brandon Cookses and Jalen, remember who that guy is at this point, Tolbert. Those
Yeah,
guys aren't doing it. Like, let's stop with the third to fifth round.
Ryan Flournoy, our
I
guy.
don't know. Let's calm down. Ryan Foreigner is a guy. I don't give a shit. That is my dude, and I'm not dropping him. I actually had him on a list. It was cut material.
It's crazy. He actually, I mean, he got very minimal work, but
He
in the
did.
minimal
He
work
did
that he got, he
drop a
looked
really
decent.
easy
He looked
pass.
decent.
He dropped a really easy pass, like when they needed it, and I was like,
He's also a seventh round draft pick. Like, you got to give him a little break, but he could be a
oh,
guy.
he could be a guy. But
Never
no,
gonna be a
I think
star, but he could be a guy.
if they miss out on Genty, and while they still need offensive line, and that's probably the route they should go, I'd love to see Tet and CD on both sides of the ball. Like I just think that would be, or both sides of the field, I should say, just be so interesting. But
Yeah,
I don't think Tet
definitely
makes it that
so.
far, honestly. I think Tet's gone. Patriots,
A lot of
Jaguar.
people are thinking either the Panthers or the Patriots. One of those two teams would be the one to draft him. So
I
I
think the
guess we'll
Jets are
see.
in the fold as well. We're losing. They're losing to. What are they
The
going to do? I actually saw a trade package for Devontae and Aaron Rodgers to a team, and I was like, "That's not happening. No one's able to take on $80 million,
Definitely not.
two players."
Okay. Well, let's round this out with our last question. Our last question is who are potential trade up teams to watch in this draft? And I will start with the team we just mentioned, and that's the Jets. I think that if they want to try to rebuild this thing right away, trading up to get one of the quarterbacks that potentially falls would be something. Because I think if they like, I'm just gonna play this out. Let's say Cam Ward goes one, Cleveland shocks the world and goes like Abdul Carter because they trade Miles Garrett, whatever. Giants pass, Patriots pass. Would they try to trade with Jacksonville to trade up to get above the Raiders to try to get Shador? The problem is obviously Shador might not want to play for the Jets, but that would be my team that I'm thinking about with a quarterback to where like maybe they would hype up or hop up and get him.
Well, I haven't really thought about the trade ups as much, but let me tell you about the trade downs that I see. Cleveland
Okay,
team that picks, I think, on the board.
they might pick a quarterback. By the way, like if Cam
Yeah,
Ward's there, say Tennessee goes Abdul Carter, I can definitely see them doing that.
I don't see that one's probably one of the more least likely ones, but they could recoup so much draft picks and just rebuild this team later. Like unfortunately, because I don't think they can really get an out on Deshaun Watson unless there's new legal stuff. Um,
You just
Raiders,
bench
I
him.
think, are a potential trade up for sure. I like your idea of the Jets, though. I mean, I think Vegas is all in on whatever they don't get on free agency, right? Whether it's if they go after a quarterback and sign like Deontay Foreman as a running back, 100% are getting Genty. And I think we can stop that conversation right there.
Can I give you this? Oh man, I just thought about this, but this is going to be my fireball bet of the draft. Not to you, just for the world.
No, I'm taking it. I'm taking
for
it.
karma.
I'm taking it.
The San Francisco 49ers at 11 are trading that pick. They will not pick at 11. There will be a different team picking at 11. Right before the Cowboys, say you wanted Genty, and he's still there before the Cowboys pick. 11 is the pick.
Pittsburgh, I think there's Chargers, Minnesota can't really do it, but I mean, Cincy even. I mean, I think we're undervaluing how many teams below the top 10 need Genty on their team right now.
If he's available at 11, San Francisco's that pick is gone. It is a different team that's going to be drafting there right before the Cowboys swoop in. Everybody is going to be in Jerry Jones' ear saying like, "Well, you could have had Genty, but you couldn't trade up or whatever." I think there's no way 49ers are drafting at 11. I think they trade back, coop a bunch of picks, and somebody gets Ashton Genty at 11.
First things first, all the winners of the playoff first round and on, other than potentially Washington, do not need an elite running back to join their team. Maybe the Chiefs, if you wanted to add one or whatever. But like all those teams have running backs that are elite. That this is the first year we've seen this in a while where there's like no LeGarrette Blunts and random running backs that they just signed for 1-year deals. But yeah, man, you got Minnesota, Chargers, Pittsburgh, Denver, all willing to make that move, I think. Seattle, Tampa are out. Cincy is in. Arizona's out. Atlanta's out. But Colts are apparently in for some reason.
The Colts, the shocking in, apparently.
It's a weird, but like even okay, but honestly, though, like before you said this whole trade back for San Francisco, which I could totally see. I could see him just being like, "This is a free for all. Who's going to give me the best option to build this again?" But what if San Francisco buys Genty right before Dallas?
I don't even want to think about it. To be honest.
Highly doubt it. But what if? Like this is the new regime of the 49ers now. McCaffrey isn't out, but that gives McCaffrey the grace of being healthy and still being that fun player. And then they don't have to worry about Debo. They can get rid of him. They can keep Ayuk, who they already signed, which unfortunately looks like a terrible mistake at this point, which was so funny because of the holdout. And you got Jennings and Pearsall and whatever else you add. I assume they add a wide receiver. You got Kittle. You got Purdy. Like, this is that offense. I mean, we already knew their offense is amazing, but you add that and have like an actual 1-2 with McCaffrey being kind of in the state that he's in. Never really thought about it until now, but like pretty much any of these, there's a lot of teams.
If the 49ers did Genty, I would be, again, I don't have the 101 in any league, so I'll be fist pumping under my desk, but like I would be so upset because like, man, I don't want to sit and watch him behind Christian McCaffrey for 2 years, potentially 3. Like I just don't want to watch it.
Fantasy wise, it would suck a little bit.
It would be the worst.
At the same time, we've seen McCaffrey miss basically an entire season this year. We've seen him miss multiple stretches. It's like the best cut. And honestly, that slips. Does Genty still go 1-on-1 if he gets drafted by the 49ers? I think he still has to.
We would be having conversations about it. That is for darn sure. Just wait until by the way, everybody that's listening to the podcast, thank you for making it this far. Listen to the episode after the draft if Genty goes to the 49ers, because the beginning of that podcast will be a nuclear bomb that goes off because, wow.
And that sucks. Okay, so we're talking Dynasty, right? Like, what about a redraft? Like, what the hell do you do there? Like, Genty's no longer in the 3rd round. McCaffrey's wherever the hell he's at. Like, it's like the most free-for-all for those two.
It would be the worst.
They'd both be in like the 3rd or 4th round, and it would be like, instead of like choosing between 2 10-round running back or round 10 running backs, you'd be choosing round 3 or round 4. If this is, am I going to make the playoffs or am I going to just lose immediately?
And I know there's probably somebody out there listening right now that's like, guys, the Detroit Lions literally run a 2 running back system. I just don't think these guys are the same. I think this would be more like the Falcons, where like one of them is probably going to be really
There's
well or really
Algier
good.
days and there's Bijan days.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to be more like that, which now it's kind of shifted more Bijan, but it's taken, 2-3 years at this point? I can't remember how long Bijan's been in the league. It's been a while, but yeah, so
Okay.
like we haven't gotten to that point yet.
Outside of like the obvious Detroit Lions, we got like no teams who can run two running backs efficiently. Technically, Miami 2 years ago, not last year though.
I mean, you're right.
There's like
The Saints did it once upon a time.
yeah, there's teams that have done it once upon a time. I'm just thinking of just straight last year, like Chargers. It was straight. Dobbins. It wasn't no Gus Edwards.
Jaguars was ass. Washington
Jaguars
was
was
ass. They
terrible in
tried it.
general.
I'm just thinking
Washington,
of the teams that tried it. They were ass.
yeah.
Tennessee, they were ass with
Kansas
it.
City technically did it, but they were both swapped. Neither one were playing at the same
I don't
time.
think they wanted to do that,
They
but
didn't
they
want to
did.
do that. Rams was one man. Houston was one man. Minnesota was just a trash all around.
Yeah, it's pretty
Denver
bad.
was just whoever decided to play that day. Tampa, I guess, would be a similar situation. Rashad White was usable,
Yeah.
and Bucky was amazing.
It
Obviously,
it shouldn't have been that way though. But I mean, that right there, I guess, would be the
Seattle,
good
but
point
once
of
again,
it.
injuries.
But if the 49ers wanted to be a straight running team and they just ran majority of the game
But
and just put,
isn't that what the 49ers are about? Is being an old school running football team? All right, I'm sorry.
I
We'll
hate
get.
that we're talking about this because I will have an
I'm
Atlanta
sold on it, dude.
Falcons freak out about it. But then again,
I'm
it's not
sold on
Arthur Smith. I'd be more upset if Arthur Smith gets him. Like that is what I don't want to happen for the
it. Nah,
Steelers to get him yet
they
again.
could trade up, man.
They for
I
sure
think that
could. And Arthur Smith would be getting yet another number one running back in the draft to ruin another one.
I still think
DJ
Bijan
Khaled, another one.
another one. All right. I digress. I'll stop this topic. I hope it doesn't happen, honestly, but it could be really
It's
fun
not
for
going
the
to
game of
happen.
football, but not
But
fantasy.
circling back, now that you're our fireball keeper, if the 49ers drafted 11, I will take a fireball shot. But I just don't think there's any way in the world.
100%.
That is like the point where I think that is the most likely to be traded out of. Because I think every team before that needs something. So either trading up or trading back, but they're like going to be still drafting there. 49ers don't necessarily need to draft at 11. They can draft at like 18 or 20 and still be okay.
I just think the second that we get into double digits, Chicago and San Francisco, one of those two trades, and Gentry's drafted in 10 or 11 if he doesn't make it outside the top 10.
The Bears better not trade out of that pick. Just stand strong, get your player.
Okay, time out. If they traded back to, let's say, 20 with Denver, I don't hate that. You end up getting another second-round pick out of it, I imagine, or a first round next year, which could be very helpful. You still get an offensive lineman, maybe not the top one, but you get a number 3 offensive lineman. I think that's their best move, except for going Genty, because, man, that would just be fun. But at the same time, just excited to see where this man goes. Like, he's gonna be donning a uniform next year, and we have no clue what it is. I mean, I know Dallas.
I think in rookie drafts, like other than potentially what we're talking about with a nightmare scenario, I still think he's 101. It really doesn't matter what team he goes to. I think there's only like 2 or 3 players right now. Like Ted McMillan's like this. I think Tyler Warren is like this, and I think Genty and maybe Hampton, where like doesn't matter what team they go to, they're going to be fine. Like I'm going to draft them where they're going to get drafted. Don't care. But there's like everyone else after that, it's going to be landing spot dependent. Like it's going to be pretty like
Hampton gets to go through the second round or the second start of the second round or the end of the first round where these 20.
I think it's going to be the end of the first round because there's like look at that run of running back
Denver,
teams. You got Broncos,
yeah.
Like he's not making it through that. There's no way. That's a gauntlet of running back needy teams. There could potentially be a second one hop up in there. The Chiefs also need a running back. If they snag Henderson or something at the end, makes a lot of sense.
Really hope the Chiefs don't go to Omarion. Man, that'd be rough. But
I don't want to. Omarion won't make it there. But one of these teams, if they don't trade up and do what we're thinking, then they will probably pick Hampton.
I personally like. I'm going to say, I'll throw a fireball bet out since you did. I don't think Genty makes it to the double digits. I think he's well gone before then.
Wow, you think he's goes before 9?
He's a 6-7. I don't know where that is. I don't know if it's the Jets. I don't know if it's. I'm not saying the Jets will grab him, but I'm saying the Jets could be a trade candidate as well. if they don't. They got a lot to rebuild. I mean, there's a lot of these teams that just like have a lot to rebuild. Carolina's not trading anywhere. They're drafting 8 unless they're trading up to get something specific. But I think they're grabbing what they can get. Saints could be a trade down candidate. Jets could be a trade down candidate. Vegas could just straight up take them. New England could straight up take them too. I doubt it, but it's possible.
Yeah. I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting.
Man, he's got to go wide receiver. That'd be stupid.
Probably so. But anyway, all right. That's all we have. The Combine is this week. The skill players are all on Saturday. I think Saturday and Sunday. Can't remember exactly. So those are the ones to pay attention to. Friday is when the defensive backs and Travis Hunter are going to be participating. So that's going to be one that social media is going to be hunting down very likely. Genty is not performing. Shadur Sanders isn't performing. Cam Ward hasn't announced yet. I think if he goes out there and performs, I think you might as well lock him into a top 2 pick right now. Abdul Carter, I don't know if he's participating or not. I definitely think he. Oh, yeah, I can't remember if he does.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure he is.
But he would be one that I would definitely be wondering about. I don't. Again, we're not going to care about the height and weight and all that nonsense. There's just no sense in it. But yeah, I'm Googling real quick to see if he's participating.
I know I said that, and now I'm like, I feel like he might not have been, but I feel like
he is not. He is going to nurse a shoulder injury, and he's going to participate at his pro day. Abdul Carter is, but he's still in the mix to be a number 1 draft pick. Abdul Carter, I think. It's between him, Hunter, and Ward at this point.
I need Abdul Carter to go out and do something crazy so he can get drafted by the Eagles at 32.
Yeah, good luck. I would love to see them go all the way up for him.
Too crazy, just like a reckless driving or something, like maybe in like a school zone, go like 80 while drinking. Not kill a kid though, definitely not.
Okay, I'm glad that you clarified that.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that.
Or how about we just don't do any of that and we just
all right, Carter, that's fine. Go to
whatever the team.
Fine, whatever, man.
For sure. All right, that's all we got. Combine this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Next week, I think we're going to do Mock Draft 2.0 after the Combine, kind of realign our feelings. I definitely think, I think we've got a better handle on it now. The first one we kind of just threw out there, but
I don't know, man. Last year, our first mock draft was like almost dead on. Like we called the wide receiver run at 20 and hit like 4 wide receivers in a row. And it was like almost exactly the same, different names, obviously, but.
Yeah, dude, listen to this next 4 weeks of this podcast. And in case anybody's still listening, just get hype. Next week's Mock Draft 2.0. Week after that is the first day of free agency. So that's instant free agency reaction pod.
2 weeks from now? Holy shit.
Like next week's Mock Draft. Week after that is instant reactions. And then the 19th, we're going to go through winners and losers of free agency because obviously things are going to happen after the podcast. And then 26th is breakout players. Like I don't know. This is a good month coming up here for this podcast.
Wow, man, I always love the breakout players podcast too because it's so early, and somehow we seemingly have 2 or 3 guys that are just always in the mix, and we're like, "Oh, told you."
It's true. Well, I mean, after free agency, you can kind of like tell a little bit about what depth charts are going to be. Obviously, the draft shakes a little bit up, but.
It's hard to like really come up with like ingenious fantasy content whenever we don't know what the roster makeup looks like.
Well, plus there's going to be some crazy trades that we're not even going to see coming next week, and so like we don't even know exactly who's going to be where. Again, if this Jonathan Taylor thing happens, we are clipping this podcast because that is the writing is a little weird on the wall about that. That is interesting that they. Wanted and they're in range.
They might just not want to pay Taylor. Comes down to it, and just start.
I don't know.
The next Taylor.
I think a lot of people would freak out about it, but I definitely think they could do it, and it would be not surprising to us because we just talked about it now, but it will be surprising to everyone else for sure. But yeah,
blowing people's minds
for sure. All right, that's all we got for this week. Josh, get us out of here.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.